Hi, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. I am your host, Carmen. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, an early childhood special educator, and a certified life and performance coach. I created this podcast to help as many ADHDers as I could to learn about your specific ADHD. I know that when I was late diagnosed, I was sent out the door with meds and no help. We have to do a lot of this work on our own, but if we join together in community, we can live more authentically and with more joy in our lives. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, my friend, and welcome back to the podcast. We are here to talk about a very important part of ADHD. So important that they took it out of the DSM-5 the most recent time that they put in, the different criteria for ADHD. But emotions were definitely a part of the ADHD diagnosis before that. So a question, do you ever feel like your emotions run your day? That your emotions come on extremely fast and intense? So much so that you may lash out, shut down, and or even overshare with the person that you may be with? If any of that sounds relatable, you're not alone. If you've ever felt like your emotions are running the show, or like super small frustrations can quickly turn into full-blown meltdowns, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not dramatic, you're not too much, and you're not oversensitive. You have ADHD. And ADHD affects the way that we experience, express, and manage our emotions. So today, we're going to talk about primary and secondary emotions, how ADHD comes in to stir it all up, and things we can do to help us manage the highs and the lows. I'm also going to be drawing insights from two amazing ADHD self-improvement books. Those books are Dirty Laundry by Roxanne and Rick Pink, aka the ADHD love couple on social media, and Tamara Rosier's new book called You, Me, and Our ADHD Family. They're both linked down in the show notes if you want to check them out. Both Tamara and the ADHD love couple are great authors, and they both have another book that I've also read and loved. But this episode was inspired by You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, and parts of that book reminded me of some insights that I learned in Dirty Laundry. So let's start with the basics. What does it mean when I say primary and secondary emotions? Well, our emotions unfold in two parts. Have you ever started crying even though you're feeling super angry? That's because emotions unfold into layers. Usually, there's a different, more deep emotion under that surface level anger. Primary emotions are those surface level, those most basic, and first and fastest emotional responses. Think that anger, happy, sad, fear, or envy. These emotions are instinctual, and they happen very quickly, almost like an automatic response. When you have ADHD, these are the emotions that come on intensely, like a wave, feeling like the emotion has engulfed you and is soaking through to your skin. The secondary emotions are the more complex second layer of the emotion that shows more of the real and raw emotions that we're actually feeling based on the experience or situation and our past experience and situations. Oftentimes, these secondary emotions are influenced by our beliefs, thoughts, and or societal expectations. These can include guilt, hate, embarrassment, and pride. Now, you may be wondering, how does ADHD fit into all of this? So, according to Tamara Rosier in her new book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, she explains how people with ADHD experience emotions differently because our brain wiring is not the same as a neurotypical. We're going to get a little sciencey here, but I'm going to explain it so that you understand, so that you can understand that your brain, like, you're not broken. Nothing's wrong with you. This is scientifically proven how our brains are wired, okay? So when a neurotypical brain is faced with a strong emotion, the limbic system of the brain lights up. That part of the brain is the boss of the emotions and your behavior about them. Then, the limbic system sends the emotion message to the cerebral cortex. That part of our brain is responsible for regulating emotions, reasoning, and problem solving. So basically being rational and problem solving through regulated emotions, okay? Then, in the neurotypical brain, remember, the prefrontal cortex steps in, acting as like the go-between from the limbic system to the cerebral cortex. And it slows down the emotional response to give the person a second to think and, stop before acting. Now, if this sounds like some kind of magical unicorn to you, same. But then, she goes on to explain that our neurodiverse brains are wired differently. The connection between the limbic system, so the one that controls emotions and behavior, the connection between that and the cerebral cortex, the part that regulates, problem solves, and is rational, is very weak. Okay, so think about some old charger that has come frayed at the end, right? And you can see the wires on the inside, and it only kind of like half charges your phone sometimes. That's the connection between the limbic and the cerebral cortex. So the emotion and behavior part of our brain and the problem solving, being rational, and regulation, the connection between those two things is very weak. So when we experience the strong emotions, we have absolutely no time given to stop, think, or do anything but react. And since this is how primary emotions kind of behave, it's no wonder that we don't develop an emotional vocabulary bigger than like happy, sad, mad, or fine. Additionally, because the prefrontal cortex is unable to assist in regulation or impulsivity, we feel those initial primary emotions, we feel those intensely, and they can change frequently. Calming down can be just absolutely impossible, and you could feel exhausted after feeling like you've ridden an emotional roller coaster all day. This does not mean that we only feel primary emotions. They can spiral into secondary emotions. The frustration you felt because of a missed deadline might turn into embarrassment, which can then lead and feed itself into self-criticism and or shame. When our emotions are unchecked and untreated, the cascade of emotions that overwhelm our system make it hard to step back and gain perspective or even stop to name the emotion. So a missed deadline now has you ruminating and negatively thoughts spiraling, leading to low self-esteem, tumultuous relationships, and burnout cycles that you won't be able to escape. I have a secret, and you may not like what I'm about to say, but the goal is not to feel less emotions or to feel good all the time. The goal is to learn about your emotions, your patterns, and learning how to manage your emotions to live a more fulfilling and less overwhelming life. Now, I know you may be thinking, how could I ever do that? My emotions literally run my life, Carmen. It really feels like they are in control. To that, I want to say I understand. You are valid in how you feel, and you are not alone. When I was listening to the portion of the Tamara Rosier's book, it reminded me of a part of the book in Dirty Laundry by Roxanne and Rick Pink, aka the ADHD love couple on social media. The way that Roxanne and Rick explain ADHD and emotions is so relatable, and they wrote it beautifully. So in their book, they state that ADHD brains are emotional amplifiers. They describe how for the ADHD brain, emotions don't just sit quietly in the background like they do for neurotypicals. They show up, bust in, and demand attention like toddlers. Let's use a metaphor. Think about a laundry pile or paperwork piling up in a room. For a neurotypical person, it's just a mess that needs to be cleaned up. For a neurodiverse person, those piles may trigger immediate frustration, a primary emotion, a sense of failure for not staying organized, which is a secondary emotion, then eventually complete avoidance because the task and the overwhelming emotions is just all too much. The Pinks also highlight in their book how these amplified emotions can affect relationships negatively. Small disagreements can escalate because the ADHD emotions are so intense, and without that stop and think, we just react. And usually, it's not in a helpful or productive way at all. When you have a couple with one ADHDer and one neurotypical or non-ADHDer, the intensity of the ADHDer's emotion can confuse the non-ADHDer who may not understand, or they may take it personally, or double back, creating fights that are unproductive and unhealthy. This can happen in romantic relationships, friendships, and all the other types of relationships as well. Sometimes we as ADHDers forget that not everyone feels their emotions as intensely as we do. Our brains are just wired differently. Hey there. If you're looking for a game changer in managing your ADHD, let me tell you about something that's made a huge impact on my life. Focused, the adult ADHD group coaching program by Kristen Carter. This isn't just another program. It's a community. It's a roadmap. It's a lifeline for adults with ADHD who want to thrive. Inside of Focus, you'll find weekly coaching calls with Kristen packed with actionable insights, a supportive community of adults who get it. They get what it's like to live with ADHD. You'll get tools and strategies that actually work for our brains. No fluff, just real results. I've been a part of Focused for over a year, and let me tell you, it's where I've learned so much of what I share with you on Authentically ADHD. It's been a game changer for me, and I think it could be for you too. And here's the best part. If you use my link to join, we both save money. It's a win-win. So if you've been looking for the right ADHD support, this is your sign to check it out. Head to the link in my show notes to learn more and sign up. Let's thrive together with tools and support that we need to succeed. Are you also loving what we're doing on Authentically ADHD but want to take your experience to the next level? Well, I have got something for you. Introducing the Authentically ADHD Patreon, your VIP pass to the ultimate ADHD support hub. As a Patreon member, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to every single episode, hear it before anyone else does, a treasure trove of resources that I've made, tools, guides, and worksheets to help you thrive in everyday aspects of life, direct coaching opportunities with me designed to help you harness your ADHD powers, and the cherry on top, an incredible community of like-minded individuals who just get it. You're not alone on this journey, and together we can be unstoppable. By joining Patreon, you're not just supporting the podcast, you're fueling a movement. Together, we're breaking stigmas, embracing authenticity, and creating a world where ADHD is seen as a strength and not just a struggle. So what are you waiting for? Head over to patreon.com/authenticallyADHD and join the family today. Let's keep growing, thriving, and showing up authentically together. Hope to see you over there. Back to the show. So then, now we encounter the fight, flight, freeze response. In the ADHD brain, our intense emotions and emotional reactions are tied to the brain's fight, flight, freeze, fawn trauma responses. Again, all of this is automatic. When emotions run high, our primitive brain attempts to protect us from perceived threats, when often there is no real threat. This can make emotions feel so overwhelming, making it almost impossible to calm down. Now, I know this episode may have felt a bit heavy so far, but here's the good news. Awareness is the first step, so you're doing it. Also, understanding our emotions and emotional responses is the first step to managing them. So, how do we get off this emotional roller coaster? I am going to share some actionable tips and strategies that you can start practicing today. But if you've ever listened to my podcast before for any length of time, you know what I'm about to say. No two ADHDers are the same. So adjust and use and trash these strategies as they do and don't work for you. Please only use the ones that work for you and do not use these to shame yourself. Learning strategies is not like catching Pokemon. We're not trying to catch them all, okay? All right, bad joke, I get it. But seriously, personalized strategies are more likely to work for you. All right, so here are a few strategies from my own experience, both of the books that I referenced earlier in the podcast, and things that work for me and my clients. Number 1, practice pausing when you feel an emotion. As ADHDers, we focus so much on the fast primary emotions that our emotional literacy ends up being very low, meaning we are unable to name our emotion and we don't really know what it is. You may immediately feel angry, and after processing and pausing to intentionally feel and find that emotion, you may find that loneliness, resentment, or shame is under that anger. Emotions are not simple. They are complex, and they unfold in 2 layers, as we've learned. And practicing the pause and identifying that you have an emotion, it helps you to regain control. And after enough practice, you'll be able to start to name the actual emotion. But first, just start practicing pausing and identifying that you are feeling an emotion. Number 2, validate, don't suppress. Suppressing, avoiding, or pushing your emotions away does not work. Ask me how I know. It especially doesn't work for the ADHDer. Again, ask me how I know. Instead, and I know this sounds absolutely uncomfortable, but I want you to give yourself permission to feel the emotion. Validate why it's there. Say things to yourself that sound like this. It's okay that I feel frustrated. It doesn't define who I am. It's okay that I feel frustrated. I'm not broken. I have ADHD. Also, try to set aside some time each day to process and validate your emotions. This is how I started practicing the skill of validating my emotions and building compassion for myself. It takes time, but remember, the goal is not to get rid of or turn all emotions into positive emotions. The goal is having the ability to manage your emotions throughout life so that you're working with your brain instead of fighting all your emotions all the time. Number 3, create space between the emotion and your action. Remember the brain wiring. Remember that brain wiring? I explained it in the beginning. It's about us not having that stop and think before we act during a strong emotion. But here's the good news. With practice, you can rewire your brain to create that space to stop and think before acting. So when these emotions flare up, create a buffer. This can be simple, like take 3 deep breaths, walk away, take 5 minutes to yourself to settle down. This gives your brain the cue that it needs time to stop and shift out of the fight-flight mode and use your rational thinking to solve problems and manage the emotion. Number 4, use visual or physical anchors. Our working memory sucks, my friend, and out of sight usually means out of mind for us. In Dirty Laundry, the Pinks recommend physical and or visual cues to help you anchor your emotions. For example, you may keep a calming item on your desk, like a fidget or something that you like to look at, or put your phone background as a reminder to stop and process before acting. You may use sticky notes and put affirmations on them to help you remember to use them when you need them. That is a really good thing for ADHDers. Our memory sucks, and usually when we're in the height of emotion, memory is far, far away. So having these things visually and physically anchored really helps. Number 5, lean into your support system. Both books and any research I've ever done stresses the importance of connection. It's a basic human relational need. I just tried to combine the 2 words, human and relational, into humanal. I don't know. Maybe it's a new word. That's kind of cool. So anyways, connection is a basic human relational need. So share your emotions with a safe, trusted person, your partner, a friend, a coach, or even a therapist. Sharing your emotions with someone who understands you and who understands ADHD can make you feel heard and validated, and it can really diffuse the intensity of the emotion. Number 6, last but definitely not least, practice self-compassion. I know you just cringed, but you need to start being kinder to yourself, my friend. Beating yourself up for having an emotion is like beating yourself up for being hungry. They are human responses. Instead, be kind to yourself. Be curious. Tell yourself it makes sense that you're having this emotion. Emotions can feel like tidal waves, but it is not a character flaw. You are a human with ADHD, and it makes sense. You're not broken. Your brain's just wired differently. I want to challenge you to challenge yourself to be a little more compassionate to yourself this week. Show yourself love, the love that you'd show a sibling or a best friend or someone that you love. We went over a lot today, friend. So if you need to save this episode to come back to it, to re-listen, please do that because our working memory sucks. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe and rate and review so that more people can find the podcast with the latest research to help anybody with ADHD. If you found it helpful, share it with a friend or on social media, and make sure you tag me so I can message you and thank you, because I love that you are trying to help me to help as many ADHDers as possible. That's all I have for now, my friends. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon.